What's good, TMG fam? It's your boy L, and I'm back with another reaction. How y'all feel? Welcome back to the channel. Salute. Now listen, I gotta make sure I'm trying to make sure my beard is clean, bro. I just got finished smashing. Now make it sound like it was just this gourmet meal, but it was really a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, man. Me and Queen was just sitting there talking, and I was telling her, bro, I was like, listen, I don't care how old I get. I don't care what type of financial status I make it to or don't make it to. I will always love a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I don't know what it does. It's like chicken soup for my soul. I don't know, bro, but it is what it is, and I will always, I don't know. It may just humble me. But anyway, this next video, 19 trips to prison. Like, I'm so excited and interested to hear this interview because it's gonna, like, I'm saying it's gonna, like, I know what the interview is gonna take place, but in my mind, it's gotta open you up into the psyche of someone who's been in and out of the prison system. It's probably gonna be since from a younger age. He'll probably let us know what his environment was, his living conditions, how he grew up, what his surroundings was like. Like, I'm so interested to see, you know what I'm saying, what this person went through in life to lead up into that, or what his thought process was, or what it was like in and out of prison. What was he thinking of, to also transitioning out of prison and trying to live some sense of a normal life after being possibly what they call it when you're institutionalized. You know what I mean? So I'm interested in this interview for a lot of reasons. So if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, join the family. Let's check this out.
Growing up with the wrong information, growing up with role models as family members. In the ghetto, you know, in the hood, we had this certain lingo that we spoke on. And everything that I was taught from an early age was all bad. But in a sense, it was good because our conversations were about getting over on the system. But I'm like, what system is that? And the system was being poor, black, and in the ghetto. That was our prison kind of setting. That was our training ground. And I remember being 14, 15, and you know, the older guys telling me, my older role models, yeah, man, get in as much trouble as you can before you turn 18, because once you turn 18, you're gonna hit the county. And once you get there, man, it's just a whole nother level.
So you're groomed in a sense. You're being groomed at a young age. Your mindset is being trained to, okay, you have this window before it really matters. Right now, you get slaps on the wrist, just get it done now. Listen to the training. Like he said, we were being trained. You know what I mean? And when you see these people going in and out of prison, you should often ask yourself, like, why? What is his mindset like? He's already telling you off the bat, I was being trained at a young age.
Now, they painted this picture of prison being like Camp Snoopy. You know, they had the weights, they had the TV, they had cigarettes, they had coffee. So to me, it was like going on an adventure, say going to the amusement park like a Magic Mountain or a Knoxbury Farm. That's the way I depicted prison back then, even though I'd never been there, because it was the picture that was painted to me, made it so alluring. It's like, oh man, I can't wait to experience that.
Fam, they made prison sound to him like an amusement park.
And not knowing that it'd be one of those kind of home away from homes that just, you know, completely just engulfed me, man, and it kind of had me messed up in more ways than one. First time I went to prison, I had a lot of stuff going on, you know, in my life at the time, and I needed a break. So I think I was sentenced to 16 months, 16 and a half for a strong arm robbery. And I did 10 months in a couple weeks, but they had sent me to fire camp, and I was fighting fires. And what an adventure that was, man, being in the cabin, being in the mountains, away from.
Now, I want to stop you right there. I'm familiar with that. When I was a firefighter, if a lot of you didn't know, I was a firefighter for like almost 7 years. When I went to training, we went to a place called Forsyth. It's right around Macon, Georgia. And their facility is located and it butts up next to a prison. So a lot of the inmates in that prison were firefighters. They were trained. Like, it's what he's talking about is legit, bro. Like, there are facilities out there that butt up next to academies or different places, and they use the inmates as firefighters. These dudes, like, I was fresh off the street, and these dudes were well-trained firemen. And it kind of shook me because I was like, yo, like, huh? And it completely messed my psyche up, bro. But yeah, they would fight fires, they would train, they would do different things, man. And I was just like totally off guard.
From society, and no barbed wire fence, no guard towers and nothing like that. Eating like a king and being on the front line fighting fires. That was a hell of an adventure. And that was the first impression I got from prison. That was it. I came in looking like alfalfa, and I came home looking like The Rock. In 10 months, man, that transformation just took place, and I was like, oh man, it's everything they said it was, plus more. Prison. But I didn't even know at the time, man, I was in prison in my own mind, body and spirit, prior to going there.
Yes.
And the cool thing about it is I was looking at that part as a release, and everything, things were hard on the streets, and I couldn't maintain and couldn't handle. I knew where to go to find that release, to get that pressure off of me, dealing with the things that were going on in the 80s. The 80s were the roughest part of my life. I can't stand the 80s. What I went through, what I experienced, and being exposed to in the 80s, with everything that was going on in the neighborhood back then. And the 80s. Man, I couldn't wait to escape, man.
Brady said, and this was earlier, but he said he needed a relief. Stuff was going on the street, so he needed a relief. Prison was a relief for him. Think about that, bro. Prison was what we look at as complete and utter hellholes. He was looking at was like a relief.
And I found the way out, I didn't know it was the wrong way, but yet and still, I found the way out from dealing with that bullshit family situation, from dealing with the crack epidemic, and from dealing with that gang stuff that was going on. Man, it was all these different things going on in my life at the time, and I just didn't know how to deal with it. For the life of me, I just couldn't fathom growing up in a predicament that I was in, and just saw myself drowning in quicksand. At the same time, and looking around and couldn't see no help. There was no help for me back then, and I knew it. Shit, I knew I was in deep trouble. And that shit kind of hurt me. And so, my second trip to prison, I did another strong arm robbery, and they gave me 4 years. Once again, I went to fire account. So, I'll go through the PFT and all that kind of stuff, and I excelled at the exercises, the jumping jacks, the running, the mile, and the pull-ups, and the dips, and all that. And mind you, they had weights. And once again, the second time I turned up in prison, I was looking like alfalfa, scrawny, skinny, 155, soaking wet. And I think I did 27 months on that joke. And I came out like 220. Fucking huge, man, looking like an action hero, for real, because I didn't even look real to myself. And then when I encounter people on the streets like my family, they say, my God, Eric, man, what happened? Shit, I don't know, your guess is as good as mine. I guess it was that good eating, fighting on fires, being in the best shape of my life in my 20s as I was going through that experience with the prison. Now, mind you, my first impression was fire count. Eating good, making good money, and not being around no guards and all that kind of stuff, no walls, no barbed wire. But as I kept going back and forth, it started getting worse and worse and worse. And I think my third time, they didn't send me to fire camp because my point set rose because of the 2 prior trips of going to prison.
Just listen at him, man. You would want to go to prison too if you, or I wouldn't say you want to go. You wouldn't mind going to prison too if you knew exactly where you're going to go. Where I'm going to go, I'm going to eat good. I'm going to be in the best shape of my life. I'm going to make good money. I do this, I commit this crime. When I commit this crime, all I'm thinking about is where I'm going. I'm going to be okay. Shoot, I'm going on a vacation. This means nothing to me. The mind frame of this dude. Look at him. He's still in great shape. Still in great shape.
Now, I have 5 prior commitments, and I have about 15, 15 parole violations. 1 year, 7 months, this, that. And, but on my third time, man, I didn't go to fire camp. They said I didn't qualify for it because my case was serious, violent. So back in this time, they had the 3 strikes going on. They had all these laws coming up, and things were slowly changing in the system, man. And I didn't really notice it until it was too late. But by the time I came to the realization about the changes that was going on in prison, man, I was already lost in the sauce, And what I mean by that is, they start taking things away. They start making it where it wasn't fun no more wanting to go to prison. I got to the level 3 yard. It was way different than fire camp. I was in a cell living with a cell. They had the bar, the gun towers, and no warning shots and all that bullshit. So that was like a culture shock to me because I was used to Camp Snoopy, Disneyland. And my reality was far from that. It wasn't no more Disneyland. It wasn't no more Camp Snoopy. It was where you really had to be on your P's and Q's, man. There wasn't no guarantee you make it home. And I was like, God damn, you got to be kidding me. Ain't no guarantee, not here. And for the first time, I got to see the difference in how the longer people stay in prison, say the lifers, they come home, they got more stuff going on. Now, for me, I think when I went there, I probably had maybe 3 years. They sentenced me to 3 years for a gun that didn't belong to me. And I think I was home for 2 days only. And I went back. 2 days.
48 hours and he goes right back. 48 hours, bro. 48 hours. 2 wake-ups. And he was headed back to prison. Fam. He wasn't out long enough to do anything. Jeez. 48 hours.
On the streets, went right back. And that's when he sent me to that level 3 for the first time. And I never knew anything about PTSD. But I understand being in prison, it's that kind of thing that goes on in there. Now, while you're in there, you got to stay on top of your game. You got to use your A game. You got to stay with your race. They got the prison politics bullshit going up in here, so you got to play that. And most importantly, you got to stay out of trouble. You got to learn how to do your program, but stay out of the way of others. And that's not easy because there's always something that's liable to happen in prison beyond your control, like the riots, lockdowns, modified programs. And so it was dangerous. Now, I remember, say, my 4th, 5th trip going back and forth. It didn't dawn on me that I experienced something worse than being on the streets with my battle with the crack, with the environment and everything that came with that. Now, that was a heavy burden to carry on the streets because being addicted ain't no joke. And so I remember coming from prison, coming home, I don't give a damn how long I was gone, and then ending up in the same spot where I left out at, fucking with that crack. I'm like, how the fuck I get here? Because in that other place, it was worse, but in a different way. I had to, it's like going to the military boot camp. I had to gear up and be prepared, mind, body, and spirit for this prison war kind of setting. Not the jungle war, but the concrete war, the concrete jungle. You know, that's what prison was, man. You know, you had these races up in there, and you know, everybody stays.
A lot of people don't think about that, bro. The mindset, the psychological, like you like he said, you gotta armor yourself going into prison. You gotta play the politics. You gotta stay with your race. You gotta survive. That alone messes your psyche up. That alone gives you, like he said, PTSD. You know what I'm saying? That alone messes you up. You can't trust nobody. Your head gotta stay on a swivel. You gotta know what this person is. You gotta play this person enough. You know what I mean? But you can't really trust nobody. Messes you up.
Separate and all that bullshit, and you know, they had everything set up, man, and you know, we had our own separate tables, and you know, it's like going back in the motherfucking 60s, man, where we had the color drinking fountain and the white. That's what it felt like in prison. Mexicans at their motherfucking table, we had our 2 or 3, the whites had theirs, and I'm like, man, you know, we can interact with each other, but you know, there was lines that you couldn't cross in there, you know, or there was some consequences. So, you know, the more I was going, the more I got wise to the intertwinings of the prison setting. And most importantly, the most important factor, man, that I missed was not seeing it as a plantation, man, as I started in '87, you know, going to prison and everything, but I never looked at it as going to a slave plantation until later on, man, because the more I kept going back and forth, the more I started reading books, making inquiries, and really taking a look around. They have 34 prisons in California alone, and the majority of them set up of men of color. And that's the God's honest truth. And if I didn't go so many motherfucking times, I wouldn't know that. But my experience tells me that because I've been to about 15 different prisons in California alone, doing my 19 trips. You know, it was fun in the beginning, but in the end, it wasn't fun no more. Wasn't nothing funny about going to prison. Not when reality set in. Shit, but it was too late for me. I was already entangled in that shit. And for the life of me, I couldn't find my way out of it. And so what happened was, the more I was going back and forth and seeing that it wasn't all cracked up what it was supposed to be, it still didn't dawn on me, man. Because I was always looking at prison as my home away from home, which in turn became my home from home. Because I did more time in prison than I did on the streets during my 20s and my 30s. And I think the last time I went in, I went in at 43, and I came out at 50. I'm 53 right now. But my last trip I did about 6.5, close to 7 years, man. And that was my last bout with visiting, you know, my home away from home here.
Listen to how he addresses it. That's my last time visiting my home away from home. Institutionalized. Spent more time in jail than he did on the streets. It's not a life you want to live, bro. But look, like he said, it took him a long time to realize what he was doing. It took him a long time to realize, which means he was so programmed in the beginning coming up. He was so conditioned. He was so engulfed. He was so like delusional in the beginning that it took him a long time to unlearn everything that he was trained in the beginning. That's why when they think like, man, no, it does start with where your environment is. It plays a huge part, man. Not everybody, but some people it does.
And well, I just like to share something about the prison setting, man, and how it was set up. And so I'm looking at it as a way to escape my reality on the streets. But it was at the point where I think they saw where we were benefiting from the coffee, from the cigarettes, from the weights, And the guards were getting scared of us because we would go in scrawny and come out like the Incredible Hulk. You know, and I paid witness to that, man. I think on my trip when I did forward with half, man, I came out so huge. I looked like Arnold in his prime. Fucking cut, man, ripped, on swole. Blew my mind. And that's what I used to look forward to by going to prison, was those kind of experiences. Let aside the race riots and all that other bullshit. My whole thing was, if I end up in prison, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna abide by the rules and the guidelines. I'm gonna be the model motherfucking inmate, and I'm gonna get on swole and try this bullshit on the streets again. Not knowing that I was bringing some of the bullshit from the prison set out on the streets, what compacted it where I couldn't succeed on the streets because I took the shit from the streets that I endured, took it to prison thinking I'm escaping, and just added some more stuff to the equation that had nothing to do with the streets, but the prison kind of bylaws and guidelines. And I brought that shit to and it just didn't work. It didn't work. So what I learned on the streets, that shit don't work in prison. And what I learned in prison, it doesn't work on the streets. It's two different settings, man. It's two different, I didn't know it at the time. So what happened was.
And they say prison is you're supposed to go there to rehabilitate yourself. How? When it's not set up. The environment is not set up for you to rehabilitate. So that's where the problem lies as well. People want to do all these investigations on prisons. It's the way prisons are set up. Prisons are set up, or supposed to be set up for rehabilitation, but it's not. Look at this guy. Do he look like he went there and got rehabilitated? No, he went in there and learned how to survive. He learned how to be avoid this. You know what I'm saying? Play the game and this, that, and the third to come back and think, okay, I can take this out on the street. And he couldn't.
I got caught up into just knowing that once I got to prison, I knew it wasn't going to be all good by far, but I knew it wasn't going to be all bad either. So in 1990, I started in 87. So 10 years into it, 1997, they took the weights off the yard. They went from taking all the heavy stuff and leaving us so much. Like they say they take the 150 dumbbells down to the 100, to the 95s and the 80s. They leave us the 75s on down. They take all the extra quarters and they boil a 50 and a 25, 75 only for the bench. So they took the majority of the weights and left us very little to work with because they said we were just coming home too big and the guards were more, they weren't in shape. They weren't at the top of their game. You know, being a prison guard, you just go there to do your thing and go home. So they wasn't tripping on trying to be in shape. A few were health conscious, but the majority of the prison guards there, they just there to do their job, man, and going home. Feel like they pay. I'm not mad at them. So they took the weights. They took the majority of the heavy, the extra stuff. And right behind that, they took all the weights off the yard. Right up under our noses. They just came one day with some trucks and he had these inmates come, man, and they just took everything off the yard, man. It took them maybe 2 days. And they had us a modified program. You know, we just went and eat and went back to our dorms because they didn't want us around that while it was taking place, man, until they were done. And it took 2 days for them to take everything off the yard. I didn't see it at the time as a deterrent to keep people from wanting to come back and forth. I couldn't see it back then, but they was trying to come up with different methods so your ass wouldn't want to come to prison no more. They didn't want to make it easy, want to make it look like Camp Snoopy, which it was back then. They said, well, you know, the guys don't mind coming in and out. They don't mind coming back and forth because of the setup, the layout.
That's crazy. The reason why that makes so much sense, because I've heard that before as far as with drug addicts. A lot of drug addicts will go to prison. That's why they tell you, man, be careful who you make fun of. The same person who's a drug addict junkie on the street that you may look down upon, you may talk about, you may pick on, you may do all this type of stuff, or go to jail and get clean, and he'll run the yard. He'll go to jail and get clean, and he'll be just as big as anybody in there and control and run the yard. I've heard stories like that. You know what I'm saying? So everything he's saying is definitely lining up with things that I've heard. And that's crazy. And they took the weights out of prison because they didn't want these dudes blowing up so big that the guards and you know what I'm saying? They couldn't even control them. It's crazy, bro. But this is a perfect example into the mind and into the inside look of prison life.
And so they started with the weights. Now, what's most important in prison is weights, coffee, and tobacco. That's what was next on the list. I think shortly after that they took the tobacco off the yard, and I say 85% of men in prison smoke cigarettes, drink coffee, and work out. 85% out of 100. That's a lot. So the prison is making a killing on tobacco and coffee, of course, and like I said, when they had the weights and everything, the workout kind of thing going on, because everybody in prison was health and fitness. Even if your ass didn't want to, you had to get your ass in line just in case some shit jumped off. You'd be a little bit in a better position to take care of yourself. So all races, it was mandatory that you work out. I love working out, so it wasn't mandatory for me. Shit, when I went to prison, man, you couldn't keep me off the weights. That was my thing. And but for some people, it wasn't their thing, but they had no choice because, like I said, what applies in there doesn't apply out here, and vice versa. After they took the tobacco, people was in an uproar, man, because, like I said, that's one of the number one money factors in prison, man, is tobacco. And once they took that, man, it still didn't dawn on me that they were trying to make it hard instead of easy, man. They were trying to deter me. But I couldn't see it back then, man, because like I said, I was lost in the politics of the shit. And I had my own troubles in there, and I had my own troubles in the streets. So it was like, damn, I dread, when it's time for me to parole and go home, I dreaded going home, man. And then when I did my bullshit on the streets and got caught, it's like, God, and to some degree, I dreaded going to prison. Because of the bullshit that came with it, And plus, they took the waste off the yard, they took the tobacco, and I used to, back in prison, they had a bugler rolling tobacco. And I was a bugler connoisseur, man. I rolled the hell off some bugler cigarettes. I mastered it. I could roll one behind my back, man, with one hand. And shit, I took my show on the road, man. I took it to the streets, man. And I was on the streets going to the tobacco shop back in the early 90s, man, buying a can of bugler for like $20, man, and coming with 200 papers. And I'm rolling my ass off, man, and walking down the street. I remember some LAPD officers driving by looking, because it looked like marijuana sticks. But it's just rolling tobacco. But I rolled them like I said, they look like joints, And I was on bugler, man, even after they weren't popular more on the streets, even, because people started going to like regular cigarettes. So I went from the buglers to the fucking Camel non-filters, because that was another thing, this mantra about being in prison. Everybody, you knew who was in prison from what they smoked on the street. So if you seen somebody with a pouch of bugler, you knew that motherfucker was from prison. If you seen somebody with a pack of Camel non-filters, you knew he was from prison too. But it seemed like in the higher levels, they was doing the Camel non-filters. In the fire camp, stuff like that, they was doing the rolling tobacco. And so I think my 7th-day trip, it started getting worse and worse in there, man. They started coming up with all these guidelines, all these rules and all that bullshit, man. They made it hard on you. And I still couldn't see it. I still couldn't see that they was really trying to get a hold on people not wanting to come back and forth to prison, man. And in the beginning for me, man, it was, it was like playing a cat and mouse game, What I can get away with while I'm in there, how can I out-slick, the counselors and the guards and all that kind of shit by being a smarter inmate. But really putting forth an effort, man, but just not having nothing to work with, man, because they didn't give you nothing viable in prison. I just knew what I had coming when I got there. I knew what time count was. I knew what jobs they kind of gave out, doing porter, kitchen worker, shit like that, education. And special services, that was it. That's all it was limited to what you could do in prison as far as work. So I already knew going in what I was gonna do, man. Put me in the kitchen. Yeah, put my ass right there in the back, doing the pots and pans so I can be out the way. And I can steal everything I got my hands on, man, and sell it back to the fellas when I get there. The bell peppers, the onions, the mustard, whatever, man. I was in there surviving, man, trying to survive, man. Because it's hard in prison. When you're in there by yourself and you don't have no support, it's hard as hell. And a lot of people couldn't take it, man, and they sunk. And so they get off into the black market kind of thing in prison. Cell phones, tobacco, drugs. I didn't play that shit. I'm like, man, fuck that shit. I don't want to go home when it's my turn to go home because everybody get a turn to go home. I just didn't know all those trips leading up to my 19th that I didn't have a plan and I wasn't prepared for home. So even though I was a model inmate, even though I did all the self-help classes, even though I came in one way, came out a different way, I was still working with the same information. I was still working with the same thing emotionally. I was still working with the same kid mentally. You know, I was just getting older in age, you know, as the trips came on, as, you know, from my first trip to like the 15th trip, I was 18, then I felt myself at 35 on my 18th trip. And from 18 to 35, I was still working with the same old feelings, man. Didn't nothing change from 18 to 35. I don't give a fuck if I went 1,000 times to prison. Didn't nothing change, man. I was still working with that same mindset. Prison didn't have no psychiatry, didn't have no counseling, didn't have all that, the one-on-ones in there. Man, you was on your motherfucking own up in there, and either your ass was gonna swim or you was gonna sink. And by meaning sink, you was gonna get your ass rolled up to the S&Y yards and all that kind of stuff, man. And all my 19 trips, I went to general population. I never put myself in a position where I had to get rolled up and moved off the yard, man, because I didn't play that shit. I knew what I had to do, and I did it well up in prison. I just wish I would have had just as much success as I had in prison by walking that fine line like on the streets. I couldn't walk that fine line on the streets, man, like I did in there. But I had the guards hovering over me. I had the inmates hovering over me to make sure that I didn't falter or have a misstep, because in there, you have a misstep, that's your ass. I'm not playing. You talk about some shit going on up in there, man. Our brothers not paying attention and following the rules and guidelines in there, man. The consequences are deep and they're heavy. And so it took me, I think my 19th trip, man, to prison, where
I don't care how many times he say, my 19th trip, bro. I just can't get past 19 trips. Bro, you know how long it took you to get to 19 years of age? You know how long as a kid you couldn't wait till you were grown? That's how many times he went to prison. Bro.
I finally got it. So what happened was nothing changed from the routine that I had established from my first time being a fire camp. I still worked out every motherfucking day. I still did all the self-help classes. I still did the church and all that kind of stuff. And I still stayed off the way, man. I stayed in my lane, you know. And that didn't change because it worked. Now, I didn't have no success on the street with it, but it worked in there. So shit, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And what happened was, man, this time, when I paroled, things started to click for me. I kind of see where the way the prison is set up, it's set up for you not to succeed, but to fail, because prison is what you put into it is what you get up out of it. If you don't put nothing into it, then your ass ain't got nothing coming. So having been sentenced to 9 years, with 80%, it wasn't just no in and out back and forth like I've been, you know, going up to the 18 times, 7 months, 9 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 2 years, 3 years, 60 months, 4 years. It wasn't that in and out back and forth kind of shit like now you see me, now you don't. When they gave me that 9 years with 80, I really had to sit my ass down and really take a look at what was going on around me all the time that I didn't see the first 18 times. I saw a lot of men come in there and put a motherfucking thing into it, and when it's time for them to get their turn to take their ass home, scared to death. Because they didn't have no plan, they wasn't prepared. And I remember getting up in the morning, because they should release us. In prison, I guess after breakfast sometimes, so you have to be in R&R like by 9 in the morning. So they give you your little parole clothes, all that bullshit, and take you to the train, the bus station, give you a little $200, and that's it. See ya, bon voyage, good luck, Godspeed. And I remember being in the TV room or the game room or whatever the fuck I happened to be at that time, and I see these men, you know, being called to go home, and I used to watch them, and some of them be so scared, and so I could see the despair written over their face, because they really didn't do a motherfucking thing while I was there, man. They just went through the motions. I went through the motions a lot of times in the beginning. I think the first 15 motherfucking trips for me, I went through the motions. Then I wonder why I didn't stand a chance out here on the streets. Shit. If you want it, you got to get it. And I didn't see that at the time. I know how to work. I know how to get it when it came to weight training. I love it. I know how to get that. I know everything in and out about training, man, about bodybuilding. You know, shit, that's me. Love it. But the last trip, I was just watching. And the more I paid attention, the more things started to click for me and it came together for me. And I saw how prison is not designed to help your ass. It's not built to help you succeed when you get your motherfucking ass back home in the streets. Prison is there for you to pay your debt to society for whatever the fuck you did prior on the streets. They got you in the judicial court system. They got you sentenced to a place like that. It's not there to do the pep talks, to help you. Man, you got to pay your debt, whatever crime it is. You know, so it's not set up, it's not designed as a good place to want to go. You know, it's a place that, even more so now, before I paroled this last time, man, they took so much stuff and they changed the rules so much. I vowed, because it started, like I said, I started really watching and paying attention because I was there for a long time. It just wasn't no in and out, hop, skip, and a jump. I really they set my ass down long enough for me to really see what was going on around me and why it was so hard for me to stay out of there and why it was so hard for me to stay successful on the streets. Because I tried to combine the two together and they just don't mix. It's like oil and water. And I always tried to take some of the good stuff from prison and apply it on the streets, but it never worked. And I tried to take some of the good morals and values I was learning and take that shit, man, they don't give a fuck about that. How you was raised and how good you are. So I tried to be the model inmate in prison where they don't give a fuck about no model inmate. And I tried to be the model citizen on the streets where most characters, most cats, man, they don't give a fuck about no model productive citizen. You know, motherfucking crack house in the hood. They can care less about that. You better not be talking about what you learn and what you gain. Probably get your throat cut. Because ain't nobody on that page, ain't nobody trying to hear that good shit. Not from where I come from. You better be about the hustle, about the paper, about the money. Because if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. And yeah, I was convinced of that one time, but not no more, man. You know? So what I did, man, my last trip, man, I did what made my motherfucking ass happy. And that was just to pay attention and watch all the comings and goings and kept my mouth shut and did more observing. Then I realized why it never worked. I realized now why things never panned out, why things never worked out. Because I was applying the wrong methods to the streets and vice versa. So I got hooked up with the right people. I took advantage of the teachers, the instructors that was there. I got all the information I could, and it was back and forth. And when I paroled, March, April, May. I paroled May 17th, 2017. Man, I ain't looked back. I ain't missed a beat. Because for the first time in my life, man, out of all those motherfucking trips to prison, I had a plan and I was prepared. But you know what? It might have took, you know, those 18 times prior just to get me to that place where I said enough is enough and I better do something about my dire situation. Because in the beginning, it wasn't a dire situation until I started at 18 and then I went in at 43. So when I was at 43 with that 9 years, I'm like, God damn, man, it ain't no game. It ain't no joke up in here, man. This shit ain't no game. It ain't no guarantee I'm going home. I got the PTSD. The longer your ass stay up in there, you're gonna come home with some kind of problems. Ask a lifer that do 26 or 38 years and get his ass home. It's gonna take him a long time to get that shit up out of his system, whatever it is. And me doing 6.5 years, man, some of that stuff is still seeping through my pores, man, still running through me. You know, I didn't know back and forth, in and out, that it just accumulated, and I've been holding on to the stuff for as long as I can remember. Now I'm finally able to release it, but it's not easy. It'll never be easy, because I'll notice all the shit I've been through in prison with not knowing, you know, I've been in some riots, man. I've been in with the fights and all that, and being close to the knives and all that bullshit and the gunshots. I've been through all of that. But for the life of me, when I came home, I couldn't talk. I didn't have nobody to talk to about that stuff I experienced in prison. I don't give a fuck if I went 1,000 times. My 19 trips to prison, every time I came home, I didn't talk about that. Nobody wanted to hear about that. So I kept that shit bottled up inside of me, all my experience.
Which ain't even good, bro. Which ain't, them dudes, you need therapy. You gotta get that up out of you. Look at this. Just even this interview alone, this interview is so great for him because he can release that. You gotta have some outlet to release that. Release that stuff. You could tell, bro. It's still like he's sweating. You know what I'm saying? It still is emotional for him. You gotta channel that out. And I know working out does that for him, you could tell. But also you could tell this interview is great for him.
Experiences in prison. So I didn't have no release. So I'm walking around with all that bullshit on my shoulders. Then I come on the streets and I got to deal with the family situation, the family dynamics, not having no personal relationships with nobody, dealing with the crack cocaine bullshit episode and all that. So I was just like a walking time bomb. And it took me a long time, man, to see it for what it was. You know, that's why it is so imperative for me to talk about this stuff, man, because I've been holding on to it for so long, it'll kill me. And if I don't talk about it, I've had my ass back in prison. It's inevitable. Because that's all I know, in and out, back and forth. I don't know nothing else. Shit. If I did, I'd practice something different. It's like the home training, man. What I was taught is just what I was taught. Give a fuck about the wrong information. It's all they have to offer me. And I can live with that, even with the mistakes, man. I'm cool with that. Because I knew sooner or later there had to be a change come about. But I knew the change was gonna have to come from within me. It started with my ass and it was gonna end with me. I don't give a fuck who guided me, who misled me along the way. That's irrelevant. Because I am responsible for me. I'm responsible for me. I got to take care of me. I got to look out for me, do the best I can for me, because that's all I got is me. Hell no, I don't do a perfect job. I wish I did, but nothing beats a failure but a tribe. And I hit those milestones, you know, 50 years old, finally got my driver's license for the first time.
Wow.
And I've been home a little over 3 years. That's a hell of a milestone. You know, I think the most I've ever stayed home was
50 years old, first time getting his driver's license. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why we can't judge people that we don't know, bro. You don't know what people have been through. You don't know what their life was like. You just don't know. You cannot know that man from a can of paint and he walk up to you excited and saying, man, I just got my driver's license. And you look at him and you be like, bro, how old are you? But you don't know everything he's been through. You don't know, bro. Like I said, and he confirmed it right after I said it. What'd he say? I need to get this out. I need to, or I'll be right back in prison. I'll be a ticking time bomb. This is the best thing for him, man. And it's not gonna stop there. He's gonna need to continue.
maybe a little over 2 years doing my 19 trips. Almost 2 years I was almost able to stay home before I had went right back. In the less
That's one thing I don't like about these interviews, though. What is up with the pan of the picture all the way down like this? This is creepy, bro. Whatever to say.
time, like I said before, it was 2 days, man. So this is a milestone for me. You know, I'm happy at where I'm at in my life. It's never easy dealing with reality when I've been shucking and jiving and bobbing and weaving and escaping it for so long. Finally getting to the place or the point in my life where I'm really able to deal with it for what it is, see it for what it is, life, my experience and everything that comes about it that makes me who I am. And it wasn't easy overcoming prison because my first impression was that was the one that got me, that was the one that hooked me, which was the bar camps, the weights and all that stuff, the TV, the coffee and the cigarettes and all that shit. It was alluring, man. And it was like a dream come true, you know. And towards the end, the picture was, you know, it changed. And when it changed in the prison settings, I just wasn't capable of changing with it at the time. So I had to go back and forth. I had to endure some more shit. I had to endure some more before my eyes started to finally open to see the reality of prison, how it wasn't that no more. It hasn't been like that in a long time, but that was what I was going on. That's what motivated me, knowing what it used to be like. But it had changed before my very eyes. And it took me a long time to see that change take place. So anything that I do, anything that I say, hopefully it doesn't have to take as long. But it seemed like my experiences with life, with drugs, with relationships, with prison, with rehabs, it didn't take the first trip or the umpteenth motherfucking trip, man. Even in my rehabs, man, I think I've been to 30 programs prior to, just leading up to here, man. 30 of them motherfuckers, man, and I put my best foot forward in all those 30 vain attempts at trying to get my life together from the crack, man. Now, that's a hell of a story right there if you want me to speak on that. And it'd be a pleasure to talk about the rehabs, man, because I wasn't bullshitting when I went to get that help. I really wanted that help. I really wanted that change. I really wanted to be that man God created me to be. Just like when I went to prison. I didn't want to leave the same way I came in. But I didn't know at the time, man, that what I put into it is what I got up out of it. So I was just going through the motions in the beginning, because that's what everybody was doing in prison, just going through the motions, just vibing until they turned and came home to go home again. And I was just in line, waiting for my motherfucking turn to go home, but really didn't change, really didn't put forth an effort. And then I wonder why I went right back over and over, and I wonder why I couldn't get up off that entanglement. I wonder why I said, man, when it got too hard out here, man, I don't give a fuck, man, send my ass back to prison. What took you so long? Because I meant that. Because what was that normal became normal for me. It became a part of my lifestyle, part of my character trait, prison. I didn't wear it as no badge of honor or no bullshit like that, but it was just an intricate part of me. And it took me a long time to see it for what it was and to break those shackles, And so I'm learning how to break those shackles on the street, man, with my mind, man, being a prisoner of my mind out here on the streets, man. I see it for what it is out here. It's a beautiful day. I love being free. I love being home. I love putting my best foot forward, putting one foot in front of the other, come with me. Yeah, I make my mistakes. Shit, I wish I was perfect, but I'm not perfect. But I do the motherfucking best I can with what I'm working with, and I can live with that. I don't know about nobody else. I'm not no quitter. I'm a fighter. And I want to be more than just a survivor. I want a life worth living, man. And so far, so good. I'm realizing that dream, one of those unspoken prayers. Having my own place. Now I'm working on getting the transportation, but there's some things I have to do in order, just to get back to where I would be more comfortable with being in this setting, because it's a struggle. It's a struggle for a brother who dropped out in the 10th grade, who are having a work history and some more shit that's stacked up against them. It ain't easy coming up from under all of that. Plus you're at the prison setting on top of that, and the shit I learned in there, man, it's almost impossible for a brother to surface from up under all that bullshit. But I managed to. So I know I'm something special. I know I'm somebody to be reckoned with. I know I'm not your average motherfucking Joe. Thank God, because I see it for what it is in me. I don't care how nobody else see me or what they take is on me. It don't matter. It's what I think and care about myself that matters today. And I love me, and I'll do everything in my powers to make sure that I keep on putting one foot in front of the other.
Hi there. Great beds, no bull. That is the original Mattress Factory different.
I'm tired. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. So now it's all about action. Ready or not, prepared or not. I'm going for what I know, and that's broke. Thank you.
I told y'all that was going to be powerful, bro. That was so heartfelt, that interview. So powerful. Like, that's the type of interview style that I kind of want to bring back, man. Oh my gosh, it's so much of a feeling, man. And they didn't do too much talking. They let him do all the talking. And you just could tell he's been through it. He has been through it. But you know what? He's a blessing to some young person right now that's going down the same exact path that he went through. And he can show him this interview, or somebody can show his interview to them. Maybe in your family, maybe in somebody else's family, maybe somebody you know. Maybe you could show somebody this and it saves their life, bro. Maybe, just maybe. That's what the meaning of these interviews too, man. Shout outs to Soft Underbelly, man. Soft White Underbelly. I had to make sure I got that name right. Soft White Underbelly. Shout outs to them for an amazingly done interview. Y'all get at me in the comment section, man. Let me know what y'all think. A little long, but so what? So what? To the next reaction, man. I'm out. Peace. Y'all stay solid. Hey.